Ukraine's military says Russia has pulled some of its troops back from front lines near the southern city of Kherson. But Kyiv officials said on Thursday that 2 civilians were killed by continued shelling of the area. They also warned that a Russian aerial assault is being planned, which could worsen shortages of water, electricity and heating across Ukraine. DW's Jan-Philipp Scholz visited 2 towns in the country's east.
He operated on the injured down here, and he helped women give birth. At times, surgeon Yuri Kuznetsov was the only doctor left. As Izium was under heavy fire, he was in charge of everything. This is upstairs. Patients still arrive, and medical staff have reclaimed some of the less damaged rooms, but the coming months are worrying.
We've got to survive the winter period now. We've got to somehow maintain our medical care at a high level during that time. Unfortunately, we cannot rely on the hospital's centralized heating system anymore. But we've started to buy electric heaters.
At least in Izium, the attacks are already weeks old. It's a different story in Kupiansk, around 40 kilometers north. Several people were hurt by artillery fire the morning we visited. This is where they would normally go. An attack ruined the local polyclinic just a few days before. The injured have to leave town. The head doctor shows us what is left of his office.
There's simply no excuse for this. It looks like they want to destroy the civilian population. There has never been military personnel at the polyclinic, only civilians. We just provided medical treatment to normal people in need.
Queuing at one of the few ATMs in the town that still works, those normal people see their home being destroyed around them and that the temperatures drop.
Every day when you leave your home, you see new devastation. And this was such a flourishing city once. My village out of town had a very nice medical center, but it doesn't work anymore. Sometimes doctors visit, but we don't have any doctors of our own anymore.
Dr. Cinco says he's looking for a place to set up a temporary clinic, but he says the Russians didn't just damage the building in the attack.
The people who work in our medical facility have come under fire 3 times now. Imagine, 3 times. Frankly, people are frightened.
On the ground, Russian destruction of civilian infrastructure feels increasingly like a strategy. For the people living here near the front, it could become a matter of life or death.
We can take a closer look at this with Mike Martin, a War Studies Senior Fellow at King's College London. Morning, Mike. Good to see you. We can see in that report Russia is pummeling Ukraine's infrastructure, and the Ukrainians are clearly really feeling it now. How long can the country and its resources realistically stand up to this?
I think, Anya, actually, realistically, I think they are going to stand up to it. It's going to be a very long, cold winter for the Ukrainian civilians, and that will inevitably mean that some of those civilians, perhaps the old or the infirm, are likely to die because of the lack of, the services like power and health. But I don't think that this is going to stop the Ukrainian military fighting. I think actually the opposite is going to happen. The more that the Russians inflict damage on Ukrainian civilians, the harder the Ukrainian military is likely to fight back.
We heard from the US, from French President Macron's visit to the US, that both the US president and the French president are committed to holding Russia to account for widely documented atrocities and war crimes. Can you talk to us about this? How will they realistically be able to hold Russia to account?
So international prosecutions for war crimes or crimes against humanity, of which Russia has committed a number in this conflict. The reality is that these prosecutions only get carried out and inflicted upon losers, right? So countries that lose wars. So if we have a peace deal in Ukraine, that almost certainly means that we won't be prosecuting Russia. The only way that Putin and his senior generals are going to be brought to account is if Ukraine effectively wins the war, Russian forces leave, and then those avenues can be pursued through the international courts. Otherwise, it's very, very, very unlikely to happen.
OK. We've heard from a senior advisor to President Zelensky that as many as 13,000 Ukrainian troops have been killed in the war. The US, on the other hand, is suggesting that it may be as many as 100,000 casualties. Why is there such a difference between these two estimates?
It's very, very difficult to estimate casualties in war. From the start of the conflict, the Ukrainians have been very, very secretive about their numbers of troops, numbers of casualties, for obvious reasons, because that impacts upon their domestic morale. It's not really clear why. Originally, these comments came from Ursula von der Leyen and then were picked up by the US. It's not clear why they are citing 100,000, although a very widely documented number of Russian casualties is about 100,000, and the Russians have been much more careless with their troops. So I would imagine the Ukrainian figure would be perhaps 50,000.
Mm-hmm. OK. All right. Mike Martin from King's College London, thanks so much for your time this morning.
Thank you.